Cool. Welcome to episode 15 of Chip Off the Old Black.
15, episode 15, Chip Off the Old Black. Kelly Robinson, 57-0 on Chip Off the Old Black. 57, 15-0, not 57-0.
It's just
15 on Chip
15
Off the
0.
Old
It's
Black.
not 57 0 yet. Just
We'll
15
get to
0.
57-0. We'll get to 57-0.
We'll get there. My name's Todd Black. I'm a professional photographer living here in Alaska. The guy above me on the screen now, I guess he's to the left or the right of me. I can't remember how this goes once it gets up on YouTube. But that's my son, Cameron Black, coming live from Kansas City. How has the week been for you, buddy?
Or as he sometimes calls me, his idiot offspring.
My idiot offspring.
Which was perfectly demonstrated in, if you missed last week's episode, go back, and about this time in last week's episode, I electrocuted myself with a candle lighter.
Are you lighting a candle?
We're going to go at it again and see if I can't pull it off this week.
Yeah, try not to electrocute yourself, although that was pretty hilarious. Cameron let me know, hey, by the way, did you happen to tell Mom that you didn't even ask me if I was okay? And I said, no, I didn't. I was laughing too hard.
No, the proof is in the pudding. You didn't ask me if I was okay one time. And there it is. Look,
there it is.
I did not electrocute myself. We're good this week.
And what is the scent? Last week was human flesh. What is the scent this week?
Yeah, the last week's scent was a nice human flesh candle. No, last week's candle was burnt out, so I decided to light myself. This week is mahogany and teak wood. One of my favorites. And before we get to my week, we have something else. It's a big deal on episode 15, a Chip Off the Old Black.
Cup of coffee, and what are you drinking that coffee out of? That looks an awful lot like merch.
This is our first ever piece of Chip Off the Old Black merch.
Chip Off the Old Black coffee mug. It looks good.
It's right here, and if you turn it around, look, it's double-sided. It's right there too.
There's no getting away from us with that coffee mug. No getting away from us. And before people say, Todd, why aren't you drink? We don't have ours yet. Cameron lives in Kansas City. That's like overnight shipping. We live in Alaska, so they've got to hire Sherpas, dog sleds, everything to get stuff up to us. So hopefully by next week's episode, I can join him in a cup of coffee in the Chip Off the Old Black coffee mug.
We have also real quick. I feel like it bears repeating now that it is officially on a piece of Chip Off the Old Black. Kudos to a big fan of the show and the official designer of our logo, Ashley Wally. Thank you so much for designing our logo, and now it's featured on first ever piece of merch. Yep, so, that was a friend.
If you haven't watched last week's episode, that's a must see, and it's right at the beginning.
Yep, good friend of mine loved watching me get electrocuted. Anyway,
I'm your dad, and I thought it was kind of funny.
My week has been good. It's very busy. It's a very busy time of year right now at my work. But it's been good. It's a short week. We have Friday off. My work is closed for the 4th of July weekend. A buddy of mine who I also work with gave me 2 Royals tickets. And the way the Royals have been playing lately, we'll get to that in a minute. They really should be giving away they should be paying people to come watch them.
We'll give you $20 if you'll just come sit for 4 innings.
Yeah, he gave us 2 tickets, and he has what he calls vomitory seats. And the reason it is because the seats are not in a row. They are just 2 seats, and that's it. That's the whole row is these 2 seats. And they hang out on a ledge over the first base dugout. They're supposed to be incredible seats. They're about 10 feet away from the concession stands. So me and a friend of mine are going tomorrow night to a free Royals game with incredible seats. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
Also, I'm working a little bit on my fitness. I work out 3 times a week, but I'm trying to change up my diet a little bit to include more protein and less less sugars and less fats and stuff like that. So I've been eating a lot of eggs lately. And my mother and I are at odds on this because she buys those organic, those all natural eggs that come out of the ground, those organic eggs. And when you buy them, it looks like you're buying a pair of Oakleys. They come in like this hard case, and you take them out, and they're in like a silk bag. And
Yes.
yeah, I don't buy the eggs that owned a boat.
Yes.
I buy the eggs that still have blood and feathers on.
That's that's right. Yeah, she does like those designer eggs. So
He loves her designer eggs, so she would not like the eggs that I've been. Actually, she would because the ones I've been cooking this week are left over. She bought some eggs when she was here, and she was baking with the kids. So I had some designer eggs left over, but they're all gone now. So next week, next grocery order, it's back to blood and feathers eggs.
it's back to blood feather eggs. And
But anyway,
you were asking me earlier to ask your mom the ideal thing about what happened when you tried to boil your eggs. You boiled some eggs, right?
I tried to teach myself to boil some eggs. I cooked shrimp last night for the first time in my life. I cooked shrimp and turned out pretty good. So I've been getting adventurous in the kitchen. I'm not sure you can call boiling eggs adventurous. But
Depends.
I I looked up, I asked my Alexa how to boil eggs, and I did everything right, except for I only left them in the hot water for half the time that you're supposed to. Uh, and then I took them out of the hot water and dipped them in the ice bath, which you're supposed to do. Leave them in there for 5 minutes, and then it said after that the shells should just practically fall off. Well, the shells did fall off, and then the chicken embryo just oozed and slimed out of the egg and down the sink. Um, so
So those were a little
the,
underdone.
suffice it to say, well, Alexa said cooking it for that amount of time would give you softer yolks, and it did. They were so soft that they oozed and slimed down the sink, and I will not be having hard boiled eggs for lunch tomorrow. But I know where I went wrong. I have recognized my faults and my
You have
follies.
recognized your error and corrected it.
I have I have seen the error of my ways, and I will be fixing it. But enough about my week and my eggs. How are you doing? How's your week? I know you guys went camping last weekend.
Yes, we did. We had a nice weekend, even though the weather, it's kind of strange. The nice weekend, even though the weather stunk pretty much the whole weekend. I say stunk. I mean, it's probably 100 degrees for you. It was in the middle 50s all weekend where we were at. We went to a place called a campground. It's one of your mother's. Denali is her favorite, and after Denali, a place called Trail River down in it's just past a little town called Moose Pass, Alaska. Yes, you heard that right. Moose Pass, Alaska. It's kind of a bump in the road on the Seward Highway on the way to Seward, and about I don't know, maybe 2 miles past Moose Pass is Trail River Campground.
Hopefully, hopefully the bump in the road isn't the moose that you hit with your car on the way there.
No, ironically, it's called Moose Pass. We've been through it over the last 10 years. We've been through it. I don't know how many times. Never seen a moose there, but we had it's a nice campground, beautiful. We had a nice weekend camping. We ran from there to uh, the Kenai and Russian River in a place called Cooper Landing. I don't know, it's probably 30-45 minute drive. It's not bad. And of course, it's salmon season here. Uh, Salmon fishermen everywhere. And we went down to a place called Skilac Lake Road because in all the time we've lived here, we've had more bear sightings on Skilac Lake Road than anywhere else we've been, including Denali. And this weekend did not disappoint. Most of the bears were down. There were several sightings down by the river fishing. Uh, we did come across a little small black bear on the road, just eating vegetation. Literally, just walked right across the road in front of us, and probably 6, 8 feet away from the car. And I, it wasn't a cub. It was not an adult either. I think maybe it was a 1 year old or maybe a 2 year old. It was small, but it was still big enough to keep me in the car. I can tell you that. Got some incredible footage. Then we went down to most any of the chartered fishing trips you take on the Russian River. Uh, Pull out at this same spot that happens to be right at the beginning of Ski Lake Road. I can't remember the name of the boat ramp, but we had read that there was a brown bear, grizzly bear sighting, grizzly bear there with 3 cubs fishing. So we decided to stop there first. Didn't see the grizzly bear, but as it's where the chartered fishing trips stop, a lot of the fishermen will fillet their salmon. Basically, they just cut the fillet off both sides, and then they throw the head and the rest of the carcass into the river. And the local wildlife loves that. Gulls and eagles. I captured some of the most incredible eagle footage of my career this weekend, just down there sitting in that spot. We just sat in that spot for probably 45 minutes or an hour. Just got some great footage. Went back there the next night and got some more footage, some more images and video. Just incredible. Had a great time, and we stopped at there's a place called Two Brothers. Uh, Maybe next time you're here, we'll have to take you there. We've always told you there's not good. You live in Kansas City, the home of barbecue. We live in
You
Alaska
know
where
what?
there is no barbecue.
I think I think I've been there.
I think you may have. They
Uh,
served
we
barbecue, and
remember
it
that
was awesome.
we went. Remember the time that we went fishing with your friend on the Kenai,
Yeah,
and we were on our way back, and we stopped off at a barbecue place just off the side of the road, and I think that's what that was.
yeah, I think it was Two Brothers, and yeah, we had dinner there one night. Most importantly, well, it wasn't a total trip without incident. Uh, the last night we came back Monday morning, so Sunday night we got in bed about midnight, and the little puck light above the bed kept blinking on and off like your shower light was doing, and it it wasn't turned on, but it kept doing that. So I had to figure out how to kill that, or we wouldn't have been able to get any sleep. But I was able to kill that. But other than that small incident, when you're again for people viewing that have been RV camping, if you can go to the campsite, enjoy your weekend, and get back without any major incidents, it's a success. So, yeah, we had a
Sure.
great time camping, and this weekend being the Fourth of July weekend, this coming weekend, we like a lot of locals here are not going are not going anywhere because that's when everybody is at every campground. So we're just gonna stay home and chillax this weekend. Uh, I don't know what your plans are. Probably just sit there and roast, right?
You know what? Yes, that's the plan. Roasting is all that is on the calendar. The park not far from my house always has a terrific fireworks display, and it's very very close to my house, so close that I can hear it. So what I usually do is I just sit out on my back porch. Maybe I'll order a pizza or order something to eat from a fast food place and sit out there with an adult beverage and just listen to the fireworks. So no, I don't have any big plans at all.
Just sit out there, listen to fireworks, and sweat. That's what you do in Kansas City.
That's the plan. It's been in the 90s here with a heat index of 106.
Ugh, ugh.
And the air conditioning broke in my office building.
Oh,
Yeah. So we've all been sweating and roasting in our respective offices at my work.
oh my gosh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Okay, well, moving on after our update on each other's week, let's move on to because I know you've got a Daggumit blowout for this segment.
I actually have two Daggumit blowouts. Also, we are still in negotiations with our friend with our friend Big Al for something that he's doing for us. We're still waiting to hear from his agent. Actually, side note, I don't know if you know about this. Big Al wants me to speak to his Rotary Club um, in a couple of months. Him and I have been arranging that. He wants me to do a Zoom call for his Rotary Club, which is great because it will help out Big Al, but it will also help me out with some work stuff because public speaking is one of the things that I have to do for my job. So anyway, I need to tell Big. I say that to say this. I need to tell Big Al that we just need to trade services, and I'll speak to his Rotary Club if he'll do that favor for us.
That's right. That's right. Little barter action. Little barter action.
But
He'll
anyway,
appreciate that.
but anyway, I digress because I do have a Daggumit blowout, and wouldn't you know it, as fate would have it, it actually just occurred today at historic Wrigley Field. The Chicago Cubs murdered the San Diego Padres to the tune of 23-3 at Wrigley Field. And so that is absolutely a dadgummit blowout.
Yeah, I'd say.
But the Kansas City Royals are not to be upstaged. So if you think that's a dadgummit blowout, let me tell you about this dadgummit blowout. Friday night against the White Sox, which makes me sick. I mean, for the equivalent, that's kind of like when OU loses to Texas. Just makes me ill. Friday night, the Royals were also in Chicago, and they may have gotten beat 22-1 by the Chicago White Sox in a game that was not as close as the final score would suggest.
Humiliations galore. You know,
Humiliation.
you have one 23-3, and you think nothing can beat that. And the Royals once again pull through for you.
Oh no, the Royals can manage it. They can manage to lose. So, and they lost tonight and last night, and so the game that my friend and I are going to tomorrow night, I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun going out to the ballpark. I think it is. But I am under no illusions that just because I'm going to a game means they'll win. I know better than that.
Yes, yes. Well, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that at least, hopefully they can keep it competitive and not be a dadgummit blowout.
We did get Bobby Witt Jr. back. He was injured, and he's back. And what's crazy about that is the Royals lost last night 10-4. And in a game where they lost 10-4, Bobby Witt Jr. hit 2 home runs, and they still freaking lost.
Man, his back's got to be tired carrying that team around. Well, the
But
dadgummit
anyway,
blowout is, it'd be interesting to Google. Obviously, we're not going to do here. Here's a challenge for any of the listeners out there. Google and find out. That's a 21 run loss, isn't it, Cameron? Was it 22-1?
yes, yeah, it was 22-1. So that is a 21 run loss. And
I want a viewer to Google and see when the last time in Major League Baseball was that a team lost by 21 or more runs.
I was telling, and he doesn't mind if I mention his name on the show. I was telling my best friend Devin, we were talking about it. And, I've been a Royals fan for 10 years. Devin grew up here. So he's been a Royals fan pretty much his life. So 30 years. And he said, I don't recall ever seeing the Royals get beat by 21 runs.
Yeah, I wonder how far you'd have to go back in Major League Baseball history to get to a game
And I
where a
mean,
team lost by 21 runs. That's
in my time as a Royals fan, I've seen some butt whoopings. I have seen that team take it on the chin and lose 12-0, 16-0. I have never seen 22-1.
wow. Wow. Terrible, terrible. Okay. That's just too depressing. Moving on.
Mm.
No games, just sports. And what we're going to talk about this week, And we do have some no games, just sports related questions. We'll cover those a little later in the show in the Don't Want to Talk About It segment because they were questions dropped in the comments. But for right now, Cameron has a good friend, colleague. He was telling me earlier that is an avid cyclist. And so we are going to talk about cycling. Is it a game or is it a sport? Now, to clarify, Cameron, let's restrict ourselves to competitive cycling, right? Not just,
For sure.
yeah, not just riding your
Yeah,
bike
no.
down to the
Me,
lake or something.
when I was 16, I used to ride. You may even remember because you let me do it. I rode my bicycle to the local deli. It was called City Bites, and I got sandwiches for the family and brought them home. That was a lot of fun, and I love that my parents let their blind son do that. That is not competitive cycling. So yeah,
No.
we are limiting this discussion to competitive cycling. Uh, we bring it up because while Dad and I do not care, the Tour de France is starts here in a couple days. So we're talking about cycling of that nature.
Okay. Well, if we take competitive cycling and we look at the I've got my notes here of the requirements to be a sport. If you can play it twice in a day, not a sport. Not everything is going to just plug conveniently into all these things, and this would be one that doesn't. Uh, competitive cyclist, it depends. If it's a sprint race like they have in the Olympics, if it's a sprint type of race, 1,000 meters or whatever that distance may be, where they just go 4 or 5 times around the track, they may very well uh, race 2 or 3 times in a day. Uh, but with marathon type cycling, which a lot of and I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about cycling, Cameron. I don't think you do either, but uh, I know that there's a lot of competitive cycling. I think I know that there's a lot of competitive cycling that is a durability deal. They're like marathons. The Tour de France being the most famous one. Uh, if you can play it twice in a day, not a sport. Can't do you see multiple heats in cycling in the Olympics? Yes, you do. Uh, I don't know that in and of itself is enough for me to disregard it as a sport because there may be multiple heats in a day in the Olympics. Those are all short races, very fast races. What's your thought, Cameron, on that part of it?
No, I do not think that disqualifies it as a sport. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I and if you can disprove me, that's fine. I think cycling is a sport. Uh, I I don't know a ton about it, but I have been this guy is a colleague of mine and he's a good friend of mine. I've worked very closely with him and gotten to know him for the last several years. And he talks to me a lot about cycling and just what goes into it and the amount of training and the amount of skill. And he has told me some gruesome stories about injuries. You talk about serious threat for injury. He's told me some stuff. So while it is not a sport that holds any interest for me, I think cycling is definitely a sport.
Yes. Number two, if you don't have to be in great physical condition, not a sport. I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think anybody would dispute that competitive cyclers are in elite physical condition
Oh yeah.
to be competitive cyclers. If there's no reasonable chance of serious injury when participating, it's not a sport. There are certainly instances of very severe injuries in competitive cycling.
I mean,
So it
he's told
qualifies
me
there.
about people. My colleague has told me about people that have literally died from injuries they have suffered during competitive cycling. So if you're dead, I'd say that's a pretty good threat of serious injury.
I'd say that's a serious injury, wouldn't you?
I'd say being dead is a serious injury. Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, if you don't have to be highly skilled to play it, it's not a sport. Uh, Competitive cyclists are highly skilled. you know what? I ride a bike myself. Now, mine is an e-bike, so maybe that disqualifies me, but you don't have to be skilled to you don't have to be skilled uh to do it recreationally. But to
Mm-mm.
participate in competitive cycling, you definitely have to be skilled. So, Cameron, I think we're both in agreement. Cycling is a sport. Anybody that disagrees and thinks it's just a game, please leave your feedback uh, in the description and we will address it in a future episode.
Right. There you go, colleague of mine. Chip off the old black has officially pronounced cycling as a sport.
It's been officially endorsed by Chip Off the Old Black as a sport.
It's been endorsed by Chip off the old black.
Competitive cycling is a sport. Okay, moving right along. Uh, we've had a three folks ask us. We've mentioned over the last several times over the last several episodes. We've talked about uh, the documentary. We did this in the documentary. Cameron was in this documentary. People have asked about it, so we're going to talk a little bit about it. In this part of this episode, it's kind of a long story, so we're going to try to uh, split it up into 2 or 3 or 4 episodes. We'll talk a little bit about it. We're going to try to talk, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes about it or something like that. And we will have, and I told Cameron off camera, we're going to have several links in the description. I know most people that watch videos don't look at the description, but look at the description. We're going to have 2 or 3 links that you can click that you're going to probably find very interesting. Anyway, Cameron, why don't you start by saying how this thing started, and then we'll just talk about day one.
Well, the origin of this, the origin was really completely random. I can't think of a way that it could have been more random. It was not some official phone call or email or anything. It was a message on Facebook, and people receive messages on Facebook all the time. They're called spam, and people delete them. Spam, like the stuff I scrape the jelly off of and eat for dinner. And I received this message on Facebook, and I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was basically telling me that Michelob Ultra was interested in developing an immersive technology to immerse blind people more in the world of sports, and would I be interested in being involved? And I messaged the guy back and said, well, sure. What would that involvement look like? He said, well, let's set up a phone conference with you and me and a couple of other people who are going to be involved, and we'll tell you more about it. So um, we set up this phone conference, and I talked to them on the phone, and they basically said they expanded a little more on what I just said, that hey, we're developing this technology uh, through a mixture of haptics, so things that you'd be able to feel, vibrations and things like that, through a mixture of haptics and sound effects. And there's a technology that I use every day in my work called a refreshable braille display. Um, they said through a mixture of that, through a combination of factors, really,
Combination of
um,
factors, really.
we are going to design a technology to immerse blind people, blind individuals, more in the world of sports. And we want to start with basketball, uh, because of course Michelob Ultra sponsors, I think, 26 of the 30 NBA teams. And they said we would like to hire you on a consulting basis to help us develop this technology. And I said, no, oh, okay, that sounds great. And they said, terrific. We'll get back to you in a few months when we're ready to get started. And I hung up the phone. I was like, yeah, right, whatever. I'm never going to hear from these guys again. Uh, and sure enough, I did, and I worked with them on developing this technology and gave them input on the things that I felt as a blind man that made basketball difficult for me to follow, because I follow three major sports. I follow baseball, football, and basketball. Football kind of starts and stops and has fast moments and slow moments. Dad would say that baseball never starts, and basketball almost never stops. It's very fluid. It keeps moving. So I was giving them ideas of what I felt I was missing out on as a blind individual that would help me understand the game more. And we were using that feedback that I was giving them. I was working with the tech team to develop this technology more, and have it speak a language that those with vision loss would be able to understand. And this process turned into a documentary that, and the end game, if you will, the ultimate goal of the documentary was to show the process from beginning to end, but also for us to basically prove that the technology worked by me using it to call a live NBA game. So that's really that's not the whole story, but that is the origin of how it all got started.
Yeah, I remember you called me and told me about the message and told me about the conversations you were having with them. And, I was skeptical like you, but I still didn't discourage it. I said, just keep up with them and keep following up with them. And then your mother and I came to Kansas City for Christmas one year, and the guy that ultimately was the executive producer worked for an ad agency that represented Michelob Ultra. And if I'm not mistaken, he had called you a few days before we got there and asked if, when we got there, if you and he and I could get on the phone together. Remember that?
Yep, I do. We sat in my master bedroom while mom and sis were hanging out with the kids. You and I sat in my master bedroom and talked to him on the phone for a while.
Yeah. And what he was doing was telling us, hey, this is what we would like to do. We would like to start the process in April in Kansas City. We'd like to film a couple of days in Kansas City, and basically what they did is they filmed a couple of days in Kansas City, and then they presented what they had in the can at the end of that to Michelob to see if Michelob wanted to pursue it further. Uh, so basically, the 2 days in Kansas City that they wanted to film uh, were to see if they could pique enough interest in Michelob with regard to Cameron, with regard to the haptics, the entire process. So this guy, this executive producer guy, he's talking to Cameron and I both at the same time. He said, "This is what we'd like to do. We're going to pay you, Todd. We'd like you to be involved. Uh, we'll fly you to Kansas City, and you know we'll pay you a daily stipend." They paid Cameron as well, and let's see what we can put together. And so, the way it was left with us is, hey, we'll call you and give you about a 3 or 4 week heads up. And isn't that what happened, Cameron? And then they
Yeah,
called us in
that's
like
that's what
February or
happened.
something. Huh?
Yeah, that's what happened. They ended up coming down. They came down to KC in March, in the middle of March, and in between the KC, them visiting KC and us flying to New York, which we'll talk about on a later episode, I also, several times, I went to a local podcasting studio downtown, to provide the voiceover for the documentary. And we may not get to that tonight, but that was a really neat experience going to the studio and doing the voiceover activity, the voiceover work. It was really neat. We'll get to that later on. But yeah, they were here for a couple of days in the middle of March.
Yeah, they called and gave us a time. I arranged a time in my schedule. Regrettably, Angel, Cameron's mother, couldn't. She couldn't get off of work. And we, honestly, we really didn't know what to expect. Being honest, and I've told Cameron this, I thought I was going to show up and there'd be a guy with an iPhone, filming it on an iPhone. And I show up, I rented a car. They paid for everything. And uh, I got to Cameron's house, gosh, late. It was I think it was 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And what time was your call the next morning? Like 7 a.m. or
5
something?
a.m.
5
5
a.m.?
a.m.
Yeah.
We had to
Cameron's call was
be
5 a.m. the next morning. We had to be at this gym. Was the gym in Olathe?
No, it was the gym was about an hour away in a little town I've never heard of called Paoli, Kansas.
Okay.
And the the reason I had to be there at 5 a.m. was, of course, they had they had this artistic vision
Yep.
that they wanted to accomplish. So everyone had to show up at 5 a.m. so that they could get one shot that I think in the documentary is probably showed for about 3 seconds. Uh, and the shot, so the gym had a bunch of windows that were letting in all this natural light. So
It was
they
beautiful.
wanted it to still what?
From a photographer's perspective, the lighting was just beautiful. It was beautifully lit, beautifully shot.
Yeah, for sure. So they wanted me in relative, almost complete darkness. So the only time we were going to get that was at 5 a.m. And then the shot is me standing in the middle of the court and I'm holding a basketball and I'm running my fingers over it like I'm feeling it for the first time or something like that. And the shot is on, and then they've got one single light shining on me. There's no other lights on in the gym, and there's no natural light because it's still dark outside. And that was why our call was 5 a.m.
Yeah, and the gym was, like Cameron said, the gym was an hour drive. So we left the house at about 4 a.m. and we got there. And of course, I'm thinking the whole time there's got to be a closer gym than an hour away. Uh, but they have a guy, all these studios, these film projects have a location scout that goes out and uh, looks and finds out where the best places to shoot would be. And this location scout knew what the director was wanting and fell in love with this spot. So anyway, we end up driving an hour to go to this gym, and it's one of those old like field house gyms, wooden floor, wooden bleachers, just really, really a neat place.
It
And
was it was a great gym. It was called the Firehouse Gym, and it was a great gym.
yeah, we go inside, and I'm expecting to see this one guy with a cell phone, and there had to be 50, 60 people there. I'm not talking about spectators, 50, 60 uh, production people. And we walk in the gym, they throw a Egg McMuffin. Wasn't an Egg McMuffin they threw at us before we got started?
Yeah, yeah, we had egg McMuffins, and yeah, that was. I think when we walked in there, that was kind of when it hit home for me too. That this was going to be a big deal. I was not expecting much out of it either, and that was when it kind of hit home. Well, it hit home then, and it hit home when I was working with the tech guys later that day. It hit home when the WNBA players showed up later that day, and it definitely hit home on day two, which we'll talk about later,
Yeah,
when my entire house was covered in people and gear and tables in my driveway.
yeah. So we have our Egg McMuffin, and they take Cameron, and he was telling you about the shot, the basketball, and obviously Cameron can't see, so it didn't impact him like it did me. I was just sitting here kind of chuckling when he was talking about, they spend all this time on this shot that's in there for like 3 seconds. And that's true. But as his father and as a photographer, I started crying just watching it on the monitor. I could see the DP, the director of photography, uh, directing him and the director directing him on what to do with his hands on the basketball. It was just so beautifully lit, and I could see it live, but they had monitors where you could see what it was going to look like on film, and just a beautiful shot. But you're right, they must have spent 30, 45 minutes on that one shot, and Cameron
Oh
didn't say
yeah.
anything. They didn't show Cameron's face, just his hands.
Yep.
And then from that, I think they wanted to. get you with the tech guys that put the haptics on you, right?
No, the tech guys came later. After that,
The
me and
coach.
uh me and the basketball coach,
Yeah.
we won't say his full name. His I called him Coach Dom.
Yeah.
Me and Coach Dom walked around the basketball court, and he taught me all about the dimensions of the court. He taught me all about the different parts of the court, like the paint and the foul line and the 3-point arc and stuff like that. And they had a model that their props department had designed of a tactile basketball court with tactile players with braille symbols, like the braille PG for point guard was on their head, or the braille SG for shooting guard was on the top of one. And I worked with Coach Dom on what the players were doing on the court, and then we would alternate between that and walking around the actual court. We did that for quite a while.
And Coach Dom, super nice guy. He just dwarfed Cameron. He's a former basketball player, and he must have been, I don't know, 6'6", maybe 280 pounds, big guy. And Cameron is not a big guy. So they were
Nope.
walking around that court together, and uh they wanted to control the environment so much that the DP and the sound engineer were in there. The grip was in there to move the lights, but everybody else was asked to leave the actual gymnasium part and go out into the outer kind of entryway. And they had tons of equipment set up out there and monitors out there, so I could sit and watch Cameron, and I filmed some of it, but I could sit and watch Cameron on the monitor, watch what was going on, what they were shooting inside. And then after Coach Dom, was that when you met the tech guys? The tech guys are from London, right?
Yeah, after that, after Coach Dom, we all took a lunch break, and then a lot of the afternoon I spent working with the tech guys, and yeah, they're from the UK. Just really great, just very patiently explaining things to me, and letting me touch things, and they were awesome, and showing me the haptics gear they had made and the refreshable braille display. And that was also when the WNBA players were there, and the WNBA players were running basketball plays. Um, they were running like rebounds and breaks and stuff like that. And what they were doing was popping up on my refreshable braille display, and the haptics that I was wearing were reacting to it. So that was the first time I got to use the technology that we had been developing over the last few months.
And then they stuck you out at center court, and the game happened around you. They went back and forth from one end of the court to the other with you right at center court.
Yeah, these WNBA players would run their plays, and they would just all run around me. And they were also extremely nice. I didn't get to spend a lot of time talking to them, but I talked to them a little bit, and the WNBA players, and they could not have been nicer.
Well, it was and that was day one at the firehouse gym. And it was, I mean, it was big time. I think Cameron and I were both pretty shocked that it was that serious of a production.
I
But
felt shocked.
I felt shocked, but it definitely was that kind of a production. Uh, Cameron, we've also had folks ask us, "Hey, how do we see the documentary?" Uh, the private link to the documentary, and I'll let Cameron explain this because he knows it a little bit better, but the private link to the documentary is no longer available. Cameron, what is your perception on that?
My perception on it, this is what I think, what I believe anyway. We do not have the full length documentary to post here, because initially the documentary has never been available on public YouTube anyway. It was always on a private channel, so you had to have a link to it to access it. You could not just search for it. And I had that link, but recently, over the last few months or so, it has been taken down. My thought on that is that I know the documentary has been circulating through a lot of film festivals. I know it's been to the Cannes Film Festival. I know it's been to a lot of film festivals here in the US. So I think that they do not have it up on YouTube anymore because it's going through those film festivals. That's my perception. That's my opinion.
Well,
But unfortunately,
not to mention it won Emmys. It was up for Emmy
it did.
awards. It won Emmys.
The documentary did win an Emmy for digital innovation. So that is my perception of why the link does not work anymore. So unfortunately, we do not have a link to the actual full length documentary, but it bears repeating that we do have some links in the description of this episode. We have a link to the behind the scenes footage that Dad shot himself that he has talked about. And we also have a link to a local news station here in Kansas City did a story on me and mom and dad about the documentary, and we had that link as well in the description of this video. So check both those out. And the link, the news link that I just referred to, does have footage from the actual documentary.
Okay, perfect. And again, we will drop those links down in the description for you to be able to access and look at pieces of the documentary, the behind the scenes stuff. Uh, I think is fascinating. I think it would be an enjoyable watch for you. Actually, the behind the scenes stuff is longer than longer than the documentary. So, but that was just day one in the gym. We're going to talk about probably next week. We're going to talk about day two, which was filmed at Cameron's home. Uh, Cameron and I didn't have, I mean, it was awesome and interesting and fascinating on day one. I wouldn't say we had fun on day one necessarily. Uh, we probably had too much fun on day two, but we're going to talk about day two next week. Does
Yeah,
that sound good, bud?
day one, I think we were kind of awestruck by just how big the production seemed to be. Uh, by day two, we started cutting up a little bit.
Yeah. By day two, a lot of our stuff is on the cutting room floor. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so we'll continue more of that, and again, check those links below. When you do what, Cameron? Like,
When you are liking this video and subscribing to Chip Off the Old Black, if you don't subscribe to Chip Off the Old Black, it's because you hate blind people and old blind people. And if you do subscribe to Chip Off the Old Black, we're at 35 subscribers right now. If we get to 40, I might electrocute myself again.
there's some incentive right there. Do like and subscribe. Okay, moving on to our last segment tonight, the I don't want to talk about it segment. Cameron, we encourage folks to ask us questions in the comments below. Uh, and we will look at those questions and we will answer how many at the maximum, Cameron?
We will answer 3 questions, no more, and we don't want to talk about it. And if you don't ask us questions, we will have no choice but to talk about sports on our sports show. And we have received multiple complaints about the amount of sports on this sports show.
Yeah. If you don't like us talking sports on our sports show, throw something down there in the comments, question or something you'd like answered, and we will answer it for you. Okay. We did have, although they are sports related, we did have 2 questions out of last week's episode, Cameron. The first
All right.
one, and both of these, ironically, are about no games, just sports. The first one, and I don't know, she must have gotten up pretty early in the morning to come up with these two. I'd never heard of them. You'd never heard of them.
And I know this particular person. It's my mother. And let me tell you, she hates getting up early in the morning.
Yes, she hates getting up early in the morning, but she did get up early in the morning to come up with these two winners. Sports or games? Cameron, I didn't make Cameron do the research on this. I went ahead and did some research because frankly I'd never heard of either one. Maybe some.
Well, he asked me to do the research, but at the time he asked me, there were half hard boiled eggs oozing down my sink. I was a little busy.
You were busy. You were busy with those raw hard-boiled eggs. Okay. From Angel Black, sport or game, cheese rolling and swamp football. Okay, to get an idea what these are, I had to talk to one of my new best friends, Claude, and this is what Claude has to say. And if you're asking me, am I reading a script? Yes, I am, because I'd never heard of either one of these. I don't know what they are. Okay, cheese rolling was founded in Cooper's Hill, Gloucestershire, England. You ready for this, Cameron? Every
I'm
spring
ready.
break. What's that?
I thought cheese rolling was just when I folded up my pizza
I
and
think
ate
that
it, and that's absolutely not a sport.
that's pepperoni rolling. Okay. Uh, every spring bank holiday, I don't know what in the world that is. Participants race 200 yards down Cooper's Hill, chasing an 8-pound wheel of double Gloucester cheese that sent rolling ahead of them with a 1 second head start. The hill has a 1 to 2 gradient so steep that very few contestants manage to stay on their feet. Most end up tumbling down in a desperate attempt to catch the cheese. The cheese reaches speeds of up to 80 miles an hour, so catching it is impossible. The winner is simply the first person to cross the line at the bottom. The event has been running since 1826. So evidently it's taken them this long and they still haven't figured out that nobody's going to catch the cheese. Okay.
I I have several comments.
Okay, let me finish and then we'll come up with them. Is officially unsanctioned since 2009 due to injury risk and lawsuits. Nobody can be sued
Imagine.
because nobody claims to be the organizer. Okay, running it through the rules. Play it twice a day. I wouldn't think so. Serious injuries are practically guaranteed. Broken ankles, concussions, and worse are common. In 1997 alone, 33 competitors needed medical treatment. The 23-time champion broke his ankle celebrating his first win.
Well,
One
and
woman
what if
won the
someone
women's
what
race while knocked unconscious and only found out after the fact. Okay,
well, and what
physical
if
condition.
someone somehow accidentally got in front of the cheese and then got ran over by cheese? It'd be
I
like getting
know
hit by a semi.
that would be sad on the epitaph. Killed by a rolling ball of cheese. Yeah. So that is cheese rolling. Uh, when you apply the parameters, if you can do it twice, if you can play it twice a day, it's not a sport. I don't think they can do this twice a day. If you're not in great physical condition, they have to be in some kind of physical condition. No chance for injury. There clearly is more than a chance. There's no chance. There's almost no chance you're not going to get injured. So I would have to say cheese rolling is a sport. Would you disagree with that?
I wish I could,
I know.
but I'm afraid to my close colleague, the cyclist, who I'm sure is thrilled that we pronounce cycling a sport. Buddy, I hate to disappoint you, but Chip Off the Old Black is now also endorsing cheese rolling as a
You're right
sport.
in there with cheese rolling.
So
Okay.
I'm not sure we're the most credible. The only thing who came up with that? Where someone just sitting around one day and be like, you know what would be fun if we had a bunch of people chasing after giant balls of cheese down a hill?
How bored were they in 1826 to come up, or more, a better question, how hammered drunk were they to come up with that in 1826? Uh, wow. Okay. So now everybody's learned something, what cheese rolling is. If you don't believe me, Google it. Okay. The next one she asked about swamp football. This was originated in Finland. It's actually the Swamp Soccer World Championships. Swamp football is a variant of soccer played in bogs or swamps, originating in Finland in 1998. So at least this one's 170 years newer than the other one was. Uh, as a training exercise for cross-country skiers, athletes, and soldiers. The resistance of bog terrain builds endurance like nothing else. There are now approximately 260 swamp football teams worldwide. The trick is always to keep moving. If you stand still for 10 seconds, you sink into the swamp. The swamp is
Or a
like
gator
glue.
eats you.
What's that?
Or a gator eats you.
Yeah, gators aren't mentioned here. It would really increase the credibility of it if they let gators out in the swamp, but I'm assuming that they pull them out of there before they play.
I was going to say they must clear the swamp of gators before they have the game.
They must. Uh, the swamp is like glue. If you stop moving, you can't get out. One match of 2 times 10 minutes is said to equal an hour of hill training. Some teams play 15 games in 2 days, said everything but in their body hurt. Matches are played in two halves of 12 and 13, shorter than standard soccer due to physical demands. Uh, so it's basically soccer in the swamp. We've already covered soccer in honor of the World Cup, and in No Games Just Sports, we already uh, ordained soccer as a sport. Correct, Cam?
Yeah, I'm not even sure we need to run this through the criteria. That sounds like a nightmare, but
Yeah,
it's absolutely a sport.
that sounds like a nightmare. Okay, we are going to have. I think we're in agreement that swamp football or swamp soccer is a sport. If regular soccer is a sport, those guys are like country clubbing it compared to these swamp people.
Yeah, they are. And once they get done playing swamp football, they can go chase rolling ball of cheese down a hill.
That's that's got to be easy going after playing swamp football. I don't know which is worse. Which is worse. But she did manage. You know what? Those might be on OSQ, Cameron, on the Ocho.
Those might be. Maybe I'll tell my colleague that what he should do is get on his bicycle and chase after the rolling ball of cheese down the hill.
And then drive through the swamp when he's done with it.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a Alan and Lisa Eubanks asked another question. Uh, and I don't know if he had an ulterior motive here, but we're gonna answer it. Is polo a game or a sport? We're not talking about water polo. We're talking about polo on horseback. Is it a game or a sport? Now, I don't know, and I know nobody watching will probably believe it. So I'm going to go into the archives and hopefully there'll be some brief footage during this time if I can find it. Uh, I don't know if the Eubankses knew that I played when I was young, but I did, believe it or not. Our entire family did. My grandfather, that would be my father's father, played, and my father played. My father was very good. And then I started playing, I think, probably when I was a sophomore in high school. So I played as a sophomore and junior and a senior in high school. And then college started, and I went to college. I got married, and that kind of all went away. Uh, my dad actually played professionally for a while. Is it a sport? Well, we will go through. And I just say, don't let the fact that the men that play in white pants fool you. Uh, it's brutal. It really is. If you can play it twice in a day, it's not a sport. You can't play it twice. Not only can the player more than likely not play twice in a day, it's exhausting. The horses absolutely can't play twice in a day. In fact, in most polo clubs, they will have a Saturday and Sunday game, but the Saturday game is usually just we would call it just a gallop game, just kind of a knock it around game. It's not seriously competitive. Uh, the horses aren't strained seriously like they are in a normal game. But then during the week they'll play like on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So at a normal polo club, at least when I was involved in it, the games would be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Saturdays and Sundays, and the season was actually paused in the heat of the summer. This is when we lived in Oklahoma, uh, and the horses were turned out for about a month because of the heat. It was just too hot. Uh, you could seriously damage the horses in the heat in that kind of
You
heat.
get seriously killed.
Yes. So if you can play it twice in a day, not a sport. You can absolutely not play it twice in a day. If you don't have to be in great physical condition, not a sport. I know anybody looks at me now says you're not in great physical condition. Well, I was when I was in high school. Uh, yes, you have to be in great physical condition. Why? You're cowboying a 1,200-pound powerful animal all over the field at breakneck speed, literally. Uh, so you have to be in physical condition. I can only remember one man. I can only remember one player I ever came across in my life uh, that wasn't what I would call in good physical condition that played. He didn't play very well, but he played. And there was one guy that was regarded at one time as one of the best in the world that was also, he kind of looked like Babe Ruth, but he just was naturally gifted. But typically, yes, you had to be in good physical condition. If there is no reasonable chance of serious injury when playing, not a sport. Uh, Not to get too serious, we don't ever like to get too serious in this show, but one of my closest friends when I think I was a senior in high school, junior, senior in high school, a guy named John, who was a professional polo player. He and his two brothers, uh, all three were professional polo players. And he and I got to be really good friends. When he would come, uh, he worked for a local businessman that paid other players, put together a team basically to play at the club. And this guy came and spent the summer there and played for this man. And he had to leave suddenly after a game. He and I were going to go have dinner after the game, and he kind of left unsuspectedly. And I asked what happened, why he left, and somebody told me that his brother had been killed in a polo accident. Horse went down, rolled over the top of him, and broke his neck and killed him. So yes, there is reasonable chance of serious injury when playing. I've gone over backwards and had horse roll over the top of me. If you've ever played, you've gone down. It's just that simple. The horses go down, the riders go down, both go down. It is a violent game. I just said game, it's a sport. It's a violent sport. If you don't have to be highly skilled to play, not a sport. I will maintain that I know jockeys are tremendous horsemen, horsewomen. There are women that play polo as well, and women that race horses. The greatest horse people on the planet are polo players. Uh, you have to play the sport while while you try to manage to stay in the saddle. So those are my answers. Cameron didn't participate in this segment much because he doesn't know much about polo. When I played was way before his time. Uh, Even when his
I
grandfather,
don't,
my
but
father, played was quite a bit before his time. So
I've heard enough of your polo stories and enough of Great Dad's polo stories where I don't disagree one iota. I think polo is absolutely a sport.
yeah, it's a physically demanding, brutal sport, and you wouldn't think it. You know, it's a sport of gentlemen riders. No, not really. Probably the worst words I ever learned in my vocabulary came from the polo club. So, okay. Okay, bud, you got anything else for tonight's show?
Nope, I got nothing, Dad. I'm good. Hope everybody has a good week. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and check out the links that are in the description of the
Way to go,
video here.
bud. Sounds good. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later on.
All right, Dad. Talk to you later.
Okay, love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.